Hello, let me welcome you to Abuja Center this morning. My name is Nwabuze Njoko and this is Signature Morning. In the past 10 days, there have been 3 major occurrences of security breach in our country. Maybe I should not call it security breach. I should call it what it is. Assault on the Nigerian population and Nigerian military by insurgents and terrorists. Just in case you don't know, you have not been reading it, let me enumerate. First, it was the capture and execution of a Nigerian infantry general. I want to repeat. The capture and execution of Nigeria's infantry general by ISWAP, that was in Borno State. In the course of this conversation, I'll be raising the alleged process, things that happened before he lost his life. The second is that what I may call right on live television, a church service was being streamed live in Kwara State, and terrorists laid siege to the church, shot as many people as they could, kill them, of course, and then on live stream, which means on live television, if it was available to you, we watched the terrorists walk into the church and looting people's property and going away. And then there was the KB disaster, in which a girls' school, the Chibok fashion, were kidnapped. The school was surrounded, invaded rather, by terrorists. The vice principal of the school was killed, and 25, the principal was shot. The report indicated that he's not dead, and then 25 of the little daughters were abducted and taken away by the terrorists. A few hours after these last reports were made, the presidency issued a statement to the effect that the president was traveling to 2 African countries, South Africa and Angola, Rwanda. Heartily, by yesterday, the president had cancelled that trip. In other words, Nigeria seems to be descending into mass violence, mass murder. We in the media keep reporting the instant developments. This number kidnapped, this number killed, this location invaded, this number of people displaced. Those are instant reports. But the question this morning is Nigeria descending right into mass violence? Violence there, violence here. Is the Nigerian government and the Nigerian security establishment interrogating from where this rain is beating Nigeria? These are the 2 issues we are going to consider this morning. And I have as my guest Professor Onye Nwabara. Professor Nwabara is a military science professor in the United States. He is here in Nigeria with us. Prof, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me, sir.
I did not want to paint emotions. I was only recalling hard facts. And those facts seem to worry me. In a space of 10 days, a country's security structure was broken through by operatives, terrorist operatives. And I've raised the question. It's not the first, it's not the 10th, it's not the 20th. As an expert, do you think that our security community, our intelligence community, has effectively interrogated the cause of Nigeria's insecurity challenge?
Again, thank you for having me. First of all, my condolences to the families of those that have been killed since this insurgency started in 2009 or thereabout. And most recently, those that were killed in Borno, in Kwara, and in Kebbi. My condolences to these families. To start with, now, between 2010, when President Jonathan was the president in office, up to now, there have been 12 incidents of adoption, totaling to about 1,600 individuals that have been adopted. During the time of President Jonathan, there was one adoption, which was that of the Chibok girls. During the time of late President Muhammad Buhari, there were 8 incidents of such adoption. Then, currently, under the leadership of President Tinubu, there have been 3 major abductions. Why do I have to categorize them this way? It's not that there have not been adoptions. I'm talking about those that about at least 10 people
were taken away at the same time.
At the same time. Now, the situation has gotten to a point that something has to be done, and it has to be done quickly and drastically. For an army, a commissioned officer to start with,
a Nigerian infantry general,
to be kidnapped, ambushed, him and his troops, and him and his soldiers were ambushed. He was kidnapped, tortured, and finally executed. As a former military officer, I don't know what else to describe such a heinous crime that has been inflicted on the citizenry of this country for an army general, infantry general. This is the hardcore of the military. And the general did whatever thing possible within his military training. But he was overpowered. My heart goes to the family and the Nigerian Armed Forces, more specifically the Nigerian Army, that have paid the much regarding soldiers, officers and men that have been lost on a daily basis since this insurgency started. To answer your question, the issue of intelligence and security, they go hand in hand. However, before you can be able to embark on any type of security, the intelligence has been there. We have seen situations where there will be military plan at a tactical level to engage the insurgency. Within the security organizations, you will notice that before the plan is embarked on, that's people that will saboteur that will leak the secret. and our armed forces will be taken, and security agents will be taken unawares. It is a situation where we have to look for assistance, be it sub-regional, be it within the continent, or be it international. Because our military personnel, security personnel, they have been overwhelmed. The numbers, the military strength of Nigerian armed forces is less than 250,000. And we are fighting people that we don't know how many there are. Parents will see their kids off to school and they're not even sure if they're going to come back home alive. It's a situation that we have to collaborate. We have to look for cooperation in order to fight this insurgency.
Prof, let me cite two political leaders in this country, in fact three, who have made comment, very serious comment, on Nigeria's insecurity situation. Let me start from Jonathan. Former President Goodluck Jonathan told Nigerians clearly that those sympathetic, if not working hand in hand with insurgents and Boko Haram, were his government. In other words, what he said was that the national establishment had been infiltrated, and therefore agencies operating under the national establishment were being sabotaged from within. He said so. Governor Zulum, the governor of Borno State, has cleared on more than 2 occasions said that the Nigerian military had been infiltrated by fake columnists who squeal on the military and make their operations impossible, more dangerous, and sometimes ineffective. Within the Nigerian Senate, more than 2 or 3 senators have raised their voices. Is it difficult for the Nigerian intelligence community to bust this in-agency sabotage, to identify those? Just before you answer me, Prof, one of retired generals in the intelligence community says something on air that the military, the security agencies look at the body language of the commander-in-chief to determine how far they can go and how hard they can push. That body language phenomenon, is it tenable in security consideration?
Well, I would like to, when the person says the body language or the commander-in-chief, the commander-in-chief is not a military officer. He has people that he has been delegated to do the work. Within the security architecture of the presidency, I don't think any individual within that enclave is incapable of doing the job. If the president has said, go and do this, that's an order. So for somebody to tell me that the body language of the president, to me, doesn't add up.
As a matter of fact, I must clarify this because of those watching us.
Right.
He said this in the context of the Buhari administration, not in the context of the Tinubu administration.
Okay.
Please.
Regardless, when the head of state summons his security chiefs, advisors, they give him the security brief. They will tell him this is what we're dealing with. And we said, he will ask, how can we be able to tackle this problem? And what do we need? they will tell him, and he will give his approval. So it's left for the officers and men to go into the theater and do the work. You just made a statement a few minutes ago where the fifth columnists, you can say that, have infiltrated the security architecture in Nigeria. President Jonathan made a statement, as you said, but it will interest you to know that in 2014, 2012, 2013, when he made a statement, I had the privilege to be invited to a security meeting where I made this statement. And for us to be able as a nation to fight insecurity, we must ask ourselves some serious questions. Are we determined to fight this? That 200-something schoolgirls were adopted as recent as a few days back, 25. I was listening to the senator from KB yesterday on television. You can see the pain in his heart. These girls were adopted, were put on a bike. So these people came with almost 200 bikes, motorbikes. And where did they head to? You know, security these days, you don't have to be there physically. We have technology that can help, if you want to gather information, track people that are on the run. But if find a situation where the resources might not be sufficient, and since the resources might not be sufficient, now that will prepare you as a government to ask for assistance from other people, or other country, or other government to help you, because security is everyone's responsibility. Because what is happening in Nigeria might spill over to other countries. So to make sure that we nip this in the bud, because it has gotten out of hand, we need assistance of international community. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah. But let me also say that Nigeria had once received assistance from the United Arab Emirates. Gave us a list of those funding insurgency in Nigeria, prosecuted some of them, and jailed them. Please, let me just remind us that in this country there was a man called Kabiru Sokoto, who orchestrated the bombing, if I recall for fact, of the police headquarters. That was audacity of insurgency. Kabiru Sokoto is not in jail now, to my knowledge. I do not know for fact. Or was he just jailed last week or 2 weeks ago? I can't say for fact. There were other people whose names were on the list of those who are funding insurgency in Nigeria and made available as assistance, I'm talking about, to the Nigerian government. What has come of that list? Because one of the things that general said on television was that some of them were ministers, some of them were senators, and it was tough arresting them. Is it still the same situation now? Because if we're having an experience, the Chibok style, in 2025, it means we have not taken any step forward.
Yes. Chibok happened in 2014. Yes. They were talking about 11 years. And within that span of 10 or 11 years, we have had series, as I said earlier, about repeats. Now, the thing is this. You find a situation where names have been given, people that might be
connected
to insurgency, sponsors, which one am I looking for? Sympathizers, so on and so forth. Now, it's not the responsibility of you and I to go after these individuals.
No.
To bring them in for questioning.
No.
It's the government. Has the government done that? You know, one thing people don't understand about security is this. About 90% of the things that are involved in security are not discussed in public domain. If those people has been prosecuted, arrested, tried, prosecuted, jailed, you and I might not know.
Why should we not know? At least that legal process of telling all that your pain has been resolved, it makes the citizen comfortable with his government.
I totally, I unequivocally agree with you. But there are situations, if those people have been condemned, maybe to face execution, such information, the little that I know, might not be made public. Now, you find yourself in a situation where the armed forces, they are overstretched.
Yeah, I'm coming to Prof.
Okay.
No, go ahead. No, just go ahead.
They're overstretched. Those of them that are in the theater of war, some might spend 6 months, 1 year. The things that I know, not even a pass. These have psychological impact on the troops. You cannot deploy someone, especially if it involves war. We are not talking about peacekeeping. We are talking
outright battles.
We are combat. And you don't give them time off because they're overstretched. It starts to affect their psychic. When you see your commander killed as a soldier, your morale goes down. Your psychic
is upset, totally upset.
It's totally upset, messed up, if I should use that word. So you find a situation where the armed forces, in as much they are overstretched, you see our young men and women fighting, trying to protect the sovereignty of this nation. And within that cycle, there are people, their colleagues, that are sabotaging the whole process. It makes this situation very, very,
very messy. That's the time. Very messy.
Very messy. Now, the government. One thing people don't understand is that if you want to purchase military hardware, it's not something you go like you go to the grocery store and pick from the shelf. No, you have to make the order specifications. AK-47 was introduced right during the time of the Second World War. We're still using it today. Where you see the insurgency using more sophisticated weapon, it has gotten to a point where we have to do our inventory check. Are we deploying the right weapon? Because you find out that some of these our soldiers, more or less like they're fighting with their biceps. It's not supposed to be like that. Military security war now has gone technological. You might deploy just 10 people, 10 soldiers, equip them very well, and they can take off 200 or 300 insurgency, just like in a heartbeat. These things, they are not rocket science, and they are available. It's left for the government to provide our men and women in uniform, our security operatives, the things they need to work with.
Well, please, we are discussing if Nigeria is rapidly descending into mass violence, with scattered incidences, one in Kebbi, another one in Borno, then another one in Kwara, taking their toll on the country's peace of mind and making citizens rather very uncomfortable. And somebody says, giving wrong signals to the international community, Nigeria is supposed to be the destination of choice in investments, but how can you come invest in a country that maybe by the time you land at the airport and you're driving to your location, somebody just picks you up and maybe shoots you dead? And so it creates more than just security challenge. It creates also image and economic challenge. And my guest is Professor Onyi Nwabara, a military science professor from the US. We'll take a short break and we'll return very quickly, very quickly. Please stay with us. Prof, when I was introducing this topic, I said that the president wants to travel to South Africa and Rwanda, and yesterday he cancelled the trip. In other words, the president has become conscious that this is no longer a child's play. He doesn't want to go diplomatic shuttle while his country is burning. You're not a politician. Well, what do you make of the president's decision not to travel?
I commend the president for aborting his trip to South Africa and Rwanda. At the same time, he says he's waiting for security brief. Let's wait. But look at when a group of individuals are adopted, they have that window. After 72 hours, it becomes very difficult to trace them. So I don't know. I'm not part of his security team. I don't know how much effort they have put in on ground. But I commend him for aborting his trip to stay back to make sure that the right things that are supposed to be put in place in our effort to rescue these young girls are done. The vice president, I think, was in Kebbi yesterday.
Yes.
I can't remember.
Yes.
So, but I know there must be a robust effort to rescue these girls, but time is of essence. And I hope these girls will be rescued and they should be brought back to their families. And I hope this might be the last time we experience such a thing, because it pauses me when you see. I've asked this question. When you travel to the northern part of this country, you see the savannah. When they say forest, I don't see any forest.
I just wonder.
It makes me to wonder. I mean, if there's an information that a group of individuals have been adopted and there is a military base or security base somewhere, what they should do is to deploy a drone or drones to monitor, to survey the place, to monitor the movement of these individuals. We're not talking about things that are just happening that day in the air. These are real-time incidents, and it bothers me that after 24 hours, nobody has been able to say, or 48 hours, this is the location of these individuals. Something is seriously wrong.
Prof, yes. When an enemy adopts the same tactic consistently, is it difficult for the military to anticipate and create a strategy to destroy that tactic? And let me tell you why I'm making this. Each time abductions have taken place in Nigeria, it is always with a horde of motorcycles. 100 motorcycles, 20 motorcycles, 50 motorcycles, 250 motorcycles. moving, and when they abduct, they move with this motorcycle. Even those who are rustling cattle sometimes move in a horde with motorcycles. If this consistently happens to the Nigerian military, our intelligence community, our security agencies, they know that's the tactic of the enemy. He has not changed it.
No.
So what is difficult in busting that tactic?
That's what I just said. Within 24 hours, we should be able to say this is real-time location of these individuals. You and I know that you cannot ride a motorbike in the forest.
You cannot ride a motorbike in the forest.
So when they say that they have been adopted and taken into the forest, start to wonder. And the movement of 200, 250
must raise some signs.
So the issue is this: deploy. If we cannot chase these people by foot, deploy technology. The technology is available even within Nigeria. You have a drone. Load these drones with ordnances. As soon as they locate this, they will discharge. Somebody that's a control center where you can monitor, operate these drones. You see real time.
Yeah, but they may say because they may be avoiding collateral damage. If they adopted that tactic, even the young girls who are abducted may become casualties and all that. But at least they know whence they are coming and whence they are living and to where.
Listen, during the U.S. war with Vietnam, I served in the U.S. Army. I was an officer in the U.S. military. If you look at the terrain of Vietnam, forest, and it made it possible for U.S. military to penetrate, you know what they did? They deployed chemicals to the forest
in that
place, so they can be able to see. There are a lot of things that can be done to safeguard this country, and they are not far-fetched. The resources have to be provided, and the willingness of the citizens to be able to cooperate with the government.
Prof, you've raised a very critical. Each time I'm on set discussing this insurgency, I try to not bring up certain issues, because not that they are contentious, but they are sensitive in the sense of our own way of mass reasoning, the way we reason here. You've talked about citizen cooperation. But when the citizen begins to look at the insurgent as his insurgent, this is my insurgent, you cannot destroy my insurgent. The same thing I talk about politicians, corrupt politicians. You see a corrupt politician arrested, a stealing politician arrested. Somebody begin to say, after all, somebody else's politician stole last year. Why are you arresting my own thief? Leave my thief for me, my thief. There are people in this country who seem to be appropriating the insurgents as their own. That should make it difficult for the military, no matter how few they are, to operate. In other words, they seem to be operating against the will and desire and cooperation of the people for the insurgents. What does the military do in this circumstance?
When it comes to intelligence gathering is not between security operatives somewhere and security operatives in this other place. Intelligence gathering involves the local people. Now, you find a situation, what you just said, where someone is taking claim that this is my own insurgent or whatever thing they call them. That's where the issue of patriotism comes to play. If we value your fellow human beings, if you value the unity of this great nation, if you value the economic development of this country, I don't see any reason for an individual to say, oh, this is my own insurgent, this is my own politician, regardless of what he or she does. After all, people do it. That's where the issue of patriotism has been held captive. We don't have that. Until we migrate our mindset from looking at Nigeria as a country to move to a nation. These are two different things. A good number of Nigerians are looking at Nigeria as a country.
Yeah.
When we start to see Nigeria as a nation, then the mindset has to change. And you find a situation where when you say something,
you say something.
You say something. I'll give you an example. My brother, my elder brother who lives in the US, his neighbor called him recently at work, said that she noticed that the blind in his room, one of the rooms, is open. Do you understand? That she hasn't seen that blind open before. So my brother told her that he has visitors. Do you understand?
That's a concern.
That's a concern. But you find yourself where, oh, it's happening in Kebbi. I'm in Imo State.
I don't care.
I don't care. It's happening in Borno. I'm in Abia State. I don't care. No. The issue of patriotism has to be brought back in this country, because intelligence gathering is everybody's responsibility, irrespective of whether you're in the intelligent community or not. That's a fact.
Prof,
yes, sir.
Please. They accuse us in the media of raising all the challenges and describing all the bad sides of situations without necessarily beginning to ask, what can we do in the circumstance we have found ourselves? Two pieces of information. First is that you said this morning that the Nigerian military is overstretched. Point of fact.
That's correct.
It appears also from our conversation that they are not quite properly equipped. I'd raised on this program once that the moment Nigeria returned from its operations in Liberia and Sierra Leone, Nigeria failed to do one thing, and that was take an inventory of its armament. Those were two successful outings, but as the Bible and Jesus Christ said, when the woman with the issue of blood touched Jesus Christ, he said that power had gone out of him. After those operations, something left the Nigerian military. Did anybody take time to check the inventory and know whether Nigerian military needed to be re-provided, to be re-equipped?
I wouldn't know, but I think they should have.
They should have.
They should have. I don't know.
Because I'm asking that question because if they should have, and if they did, what is happening now could not have created this fire brigade system of saying, look, we don't have enough, let's start buying.
Well, if you look at Ekemog happened in the 90s.
Yes.
During which Nigerian armed forces played very key role.
World-class role.
World-class role.
I can tell you that.
I have a colleague in the US who was in the Air Force that were part of the US contingency to Liberia. I tell this story to people sometimes. So the C-130, it need at least 4-kilometer runway for you to land and take off. But the runway in Liberia wasn't even up to 3 kilometers. The US Air Force pilots said there is no way they can land their C-130. But guess what? The Nigerian Air Force pilots, they were landing the C-130.
I flew in it to Liberia with General Dogoyaro.
So when they were telling me these stories, I said, wow. So we're not lacking expertise. What we are lacking is the resources, the determination, the dedication to execute. Whether they took inventory or not, which after any battle, you take inventory. It's normal in the armed forces. You take inventory, people you lost, what you lost, what you should have done. Lesson learned. Moving forward, and I believe they did that. But looking at about 30 years later, what we're dealing with now, the whole setup has changed. Equipment that were purchased
then
30 years ago are outdated. They're analog, so to say. So that's why I'd say you see our men and women in the military, even police force, using AK-47. The frequency for these weapons to jam when you fire them, the frequency is almost 60-70%. You fire 2 or 3 shots, the weapon will jam. You have to clear your chamber. By that time, the enemy has taken you out. That's a fact. So we need to take 1 or 2 steps back, listen to our security personnel, the commanding officers, the advisors that are out there in the field, that knows what they need to fight the battle. But the most important thing is the will to do the job. If the will is not there, if the determination is undermined by certain individuals, it will be difficult for you to achieve any success.
Now, Prof, those of you in military science, people paint scenarios. I can remember that in 1983, the Nigerian Institute of Policy Studies, NIPS, had created scenarios of Nigeria's insecurity challenge. I'm not going to talk on air some of the outcomes of some of those scenarios. If a government is taking scenarios, is looking ahead of time, what are the likely security challenges to anticipate, monitoring situations within the country, around the region, within the African continent, globally, and begin to determine where its risks are likely to come from. Should Nigeria not have anticipated what's happening the moment Muammar Gaddafi came down?
They anticipated it, and we know the aftermath. We had infiltration of arms after the fall of Muammar Gaddafi. They headed south. A good number of these ISWAP members were trained in Libya. And you see a situation where you start having sympathizers for whatever reason. And the people that are killing, they don't segregate.
No, they don't enumerate and say these are those who are and then they discriminate.
They don't. Whoever that they can find on their way to achieving whatever thing they want to achieve, they eliminate. Now, a lot of arms left Libya to other African countries, headed south, Chad, Niger, Mali, so on and so forth. And a good number of them ended up in the hands of those, their sympathizers, here in Nigeria. What has the government done?
That's the question I'm coming to, because you said they anticipated. Because it's one thing to anticipate and another to use that foreknowledge to prepare yourself for the evil day. We seem to have anticipated, and the evil day arrived on us just like that.
You know, one thing I found with we Nigerians, which other places don't subscribe to, is they say, well, it will not be our portion.
No. Whose portion is it going to be?
I tell people this. There is a particular area of security that I'm talking to our armed forces about. That if something is not done to prepare, we might see it happen one day. Take, for example, let's assume that it happens that the insurgents decide to use chemical or biological weapon. How prepared are we as a nation? How prepared are we?
And biological weapon was available to Muammar Gaddafi.
You know, this is one of the areas.
It's available in Iran.
That's correct. So these are some of the things. They might decide not to fire any shot. They might decide to embed these chemical, biological weapons in artillery shells and just fire one or two and go about their business. How prepared are we as a nation to protect our men and women in uniform? Well, one of the gears that you have as a military officer or a military personnel in the U.S. Armed Forces when you are deployed is your gas mask. Irrespective of your rank, you need one, because you don't know what you're going into. You might go into a place where the enemy will just release nerve gas agent and you don't have the chemical gas mask to protect yourself. What are you going to do? In 2 minutes you are gone. So there are some key areas that the military, we should not ignore. We should not ignore the area of chemical and biological weapon. When someone is out to get you, he or she will do whatever thing. The Bible says when a thief comes at night, he's not just coming to steal. If he tries to be on his way,
He's coming to kill.
he's coming to kill. So we need to look towards that direction as well, because it might happen. I pray not, but there's a possibility.
You've come to that prayer again. It's not your portion.
Most it's not my portion, but we have to be prepared. On a serious note, it worries me. It gives me sleepless night when I wake up, because some of these officers, that I know some officers that have lost their lives, and some of them were my students at the academy. You know, oh, this year classmate, oh sir, we lost so person, and some of them are married with 1 or 2 kids, young officers, men and women. We need to do something like yesterday in order to secure our borders.
Now, Prof, in military circles, is it possible for some arms captured from the insurgents not to lead to the source, in the sense of where that arm is manufactured, which likely the origin of that arm? Let me tell you why I'm raising this question. Nigerian insurgents are becoming more and more sophisticated. Governor Zulum raised the alarm about a month ago that the terrorists were now attacking Nigerian military formations with drones. If an insurgent group has now the capacity to attack organized, sophisticated Nigerian military with drones and putting our troops in disarray, that's a challenge, a big challenge. Well, they caution us not to eulogize terrorists. I'm not trying to eulogize them. The point I'm trying to make is they are acquiring more sophisticated arms. Now, I've said once on this program, in 2 or 3 instances, caches of arms from Turkey, from Iran, have been intercepted coming to Nigeria by Nigeria Customs, by Nigeria military. One I know in Lagos, one in One, and the one in Kano. In other words, Nigerian government can trace the origin of some of these arms being used by getting into the non-state actors' hands. Isn't there a diplomatic means of also checking this? Oga, the arms killing our people are coming from your country. How come?
Of course, there is no weapon. Let me tell you, when you fire an ammo, the shell, if you pick up the shell,
Yes.
When you do ballistic analysis,
Yes.
forensic analysis, it can tell you the weapon that was used. So if we can do that, where the complete weapon is coming from is known. The manufacturer.
Yeah.
It's not something that is hidden. The issue of arm infiltration into Nigeria, be it by air, by land, by sea, is something that for you to import arms into the country need clearance. And when you import arms into Nigeria illegally, there's a big question.
It's a big question.
Why do you have to do that if you don't have the license to import weapon? Then, when it comes to the diplomatic angle
Yes.
of it, I believe the NSA, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, deals with that. I know that for sure.
Yes.
So there are some things that happens behind the scene.
That's true.
That you and I
May not know.
may not know. And because I'm telling you authoritatively, our National Security Agency, the Nigerian Customs, the Nigerian Police, all the security operatives that are involved, when such incident happens, there is a diplomatic angle to it, and they try to
Utilize it.
utilize it. That I can tell you unequivocally that they do.
What can we do about the low level in the number of Nigerian troops? Buhari once said they should recruit 10,000 every year. I do not know whether that is in progress.
10,000 soldiers
Every year.
Let's say for the period of 3-4 years, might not be enough, but it's a step in the right direction. And also, the issue for you to train a military officer, it takes a lot of money to train a military officer, and we know the current event that just happened, where a good number of about 100 something, if not up to 200 military officers were let go at their prime. You know, in the US, you can be 60, 68, still serving, especially if you're an officer, right? But the thing is this: that apart, recruiting men and women into the armed forces is not the point. The issue is, are you going to provide them what they need to work with? And those that you are recruiting, how patriotic
Can they be?
can they be?
Or even can you make them to be?
It's part of the training. You will see non-commissioned officers in the U.S. Army, the day, or the commissioned officers, the day that they are being commissioned or the day they are passing out, they want to be sent to wherever place that U.S. is engaged in war. Please, that's where we want to go. Do you understand?
Yeah.
It's a patriotism. And our men and women in uniform have such desire, but it have to
Be encouraged.
to do that. There's no reason why someone, a military officer or military personnel, will go to war, lose one arm or one leg, and the person cannot be compensated. Let me give you this. Let me tell you something before we go. It was right after the American-Vietnam War.
Yes.
A good number of young men and women came back with one leg, 2 legs gone, and they have to drive. So the US government said, look, they went to universities, precisely in their state, Michigan, where the auto manufacturing companies are. We need to find a way. That's how the automatic vehicle you and I are driving now came about. You don't need to have 2 legs to operate a vehicle. Do you understand? So, if somebody is going to look after you, after your family, they'll be compensated. That's the issue of, that's where the patriotism comes. I'm going to defend the sovereignty of this country.
And this my country will defend me.
I love the statement that the Minister of Defense made about a week or so ago about the incident between the FCT minister and the sub-lieutenant. He said, even Jara Buchai said, we will support our men and women in uniform. That's an encouragement. Had it been that the Minister of Defense
through him under the tire,
you will notice that the morale
will
drop again.
Okay, here we are. My producer says I should wrap up, but frankly speaking, I just conversing on the question of whether Nigeria is descending into mass violence. How is it that these terrorists are taking on this country with such audacity? Well, issues are rising. The number, is it adequate? We say it is not adequate. Number of our soldiers doing all the job, being overstretched, being confronted in all fronts, but technology can do the job for them, and that raises the question, are we providing for them to do the job? The third, the information we have about those who want to bring Nigeria down, are we sincerely making use of those information? When we talk about collaboration, nations that want to collaborate with us provide us information about funders of our terrorism challenge. How far have we gone? Maybe government is doing something not known to us, maybe. But if you watch the social media, if you go through, people still complain about certain characters implicated in insurgency who are striding the corridors of power, so they say. My guest has been Professor Onyiwabara. He's a professor of military science based in US. Prof, I want to thank you very much for coming to the program.
Thank you for having me, sir. It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much. Okay. And this conversation never ends. It continues day after day. Please enjoy the rest of the day and good morning.